Discover the incredible transformation. How I sold my home and found my hidden strength at 63. Betty Miller stood at a crossroads in her life, literally and metaphorically. The sky was overcast, mirroring the emotions locked inside her heart, as she gazed at the whimsical white picket fences lining her quaint suburban neighborhood. Once, these fences had felt like symbols of comfort, protecting her world. Now they seemed like barriers obstructing her future. The echoes of laughter that filled her home, the warm hugs from her late husband who had served with pride, were memories too powerful to dismiss. Yet, with a heavy heart and mounting medical bills, she faced the gut-wrenching decision to sell the family home she'd cherished for decades. Her children stood on opposing sides. Laura, a sharp-suited attorney, was laser-focused on practicality. "Mom, you can't hold on to this house forever. It's a burden that could sink you," she often insisted. Meanwhile, Jake, a gentle school teacher, vehemently believed in family's importance. "Selling the home is not the solution, Mom. You've built a life here." The contrasting loyalties of her children only magnified her inner conflict. She felt torn between their desires, clutching tightly to the past as their futures unfolded in front of her. Just as Betty prepared to say goodbye, the community sprung into action. Neighbors brought over casseroles, shared warm hugs, and recounted memories that danced through her like sunbeams breaking through clouds. "Remember when the kids played in that tree? Or when we organized that block party?" They reminisced. Each visit scratched at the surface of her heart, encouraging an emotional release she so desperately needed. Yet just as she found solace among the crowd, a sudden storm ripped through her backyard, uprooting her garden and scattering relics of her past into the air. Old photographs, stuffed animals, cherry-red toys. She could almost hear the whispers of her children's childhood laughter on the wind. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. As the rain poured down, Betty felt an awakening. The surge of memories felt like an electrical jolt to her spirit. A group of eager teenagers darted past her, giggling and on their way to a community event. They stopped and offered her warm, friendly smiles. "We'd love a mentor," they exclaimed, eyes sparkling with excitement. Betty hesitated, her mind echoing a symphony of doubts. Did she still have it in her to inspire a new generation? Was she still relevant? Caught in this whirlwind of emotional reckoning and unexpected hope, Betty pondered. Should she cling to her past, dust off the artifacts of an old life, or dare to step into the future these young souls represented? With every ounce of loyalty she held for family and the fear of stepping into an unscripted life, she found herself at the precipice of reinvention. Would she take that first step toward embracing change and uncovering her hidden strength, or would she retreat into the comforting shadows of her memories? The storm subsided, leaving behind a glistening, uncertain horizon, and in the stillness, Betty exhaled deeply, feeling the weight of her choice resting heavy upon her heart. Betty took a deep breath, the fresh scent of rain clinging to the evening air. She felt different, light, almost buoyant. Maybe it was the children's cheerful faces, or perhaps the tempest that had swept through her backyard had somehow cleared the clutter in her heart. Amidst all the sadness and uncertainty, there was an invitation lying right in front of her. She looked at the teens again, their enthusiasm brightening the dim afternoon. "A mentor?" she whispered to herself, weighing the word. The children were closer now, their eagerness hanging in the air like the last raindrops clinging to the leaves. "Yeah, you know about gardening and community stuff," one of them insisted, nodding enthusiastically. "It would be amazing to learn from you." Betty's heart quickened. The thought of sharing her knowledge, her love for the community, it kindled something within her that had long been dormant. She had spent years nurturing a garden, raising her children and fostering friendships. What if all that experience could still blossom into something new? All right, she said, summoning a smile. "I'll think about it." The words felt like a bridge, connecting her past with an unpredictable future. The teens cheered, clearly thrilled at the thought. "We're meeting at the park tomorrow. Please come." With that, they scampered off, their laughter trailing behind them like a melody bringing life to the quiet street as night fell. However, reality began to seep in. The looming decision about selling the house clawed back at her, tugging on the edges of her newfound excitement. Could she really do this? Was stepping into a mentoring role just another way to delay the inevitable? She worried that diving into the future might mean abandoning treasured memories. How does one honor a past while daring to rewrite the story? The distant sound of a neighbor's laughter cut through her thoughts, and Betty had an idea. She grabbed her phone and dialed Laura, summoning her daughter for a heart-to-heart. "Let us talk," she said softly when Laura answered. "I need to discuss everything." The sun rose the next morning, bathing her garden in gentle light. With a fresh cup of tea in hand, Betty sat on her porch, watching as life began to swirl around her. Neighbors waved, kids darted by on their bikes, and laughter echoed from every corner. The house felt different now, like a vessel brimming with possibility, not just nostalgia. Laura arrived just as the park was bursting with the energy of children and parents preparing for the day's activities. "Hey Mom, what's up?" Her expression was a mixture of concern and curiosity. "I've been thinking," Betty started, her voice catching slightly. "What if I don't sell the house just yet? What if I tried something new here?" Laura studied her mother, assessing the words. "What do you mean?" "I want to mentor those kids in the park. I think I can still contribute. I want to keep this place alive, keep those memories alive, but become a part of something more," Betty said, every word feeling stronger than the last. Laura's brows furrowed. "But you'll have to manage it all. The bills, keeping the house." "I can feel that fire in my heart again, Laura. I want to reclaim this space not just for me, but for the community and for the kids." The determination surged within her, igniting a passion she had thought was dimmed. As they stood together, sensing the vein of possibility weaving between them, something shifted. Perhaps the journey ahead would not only lead her to reshape her future, but also mend the rift between their conflicting desires. An idea sparked in Betty's mind. What if it didn't just stop at mentorship? What if she organized community events, bringing everyone together in the heart of her beloved neighborhood? Yes, it was ambitious, and yes, the challenges loomed, but perhaps that was the very essence of growth. But as Betty shared her budding vision with her daughter, excitement bolstered uncertainty. Would her aspirations be met with support or skepticism? What waited ahead could rewrite everything she thought she knew about home, family, and her purpose. Would she step bravely into this new role? Or would doubt snuff out this flicker of hope before it truly ignited? Betty's heart raced with the possibility of change as she sat with Laura on the porch. The morning sun warmed their faces, but the weight of uncertainty chilled her. "Mom, it's one thing to think about mentoring but another to actually do it." Laura's voice, while steady, reverberated with doubt. "What if it becomes too much? You've been through a lot." "I know," Betty replied, "but it feels like I've been living in the shadows of what used to be. I want to step into the light again." She paused, looking out at the garden she had tended year after year. "I want to create something new with roots in this place." The twinkle in Laura's eye faded to concern. "But what about money? We need to think practically." "I've thought about that. I'll keep an eye on the finances while I start small, maybe organize some weekend workshops," Betty suggested, her mind racing through possibilities. People love the garden. Could be a community hub. What about planning? You'd need a lot of materials and you can't do it alone. Laura's voice trailed off, a protective instinct underlying her skepticism as Laura spoke. Betty felt a tug of frustration. "I'm not saying I'll change the world overnight. I just want to bring people together. Look at those kids. They need someone to guide them, to show them there's beauty in caring for something." The resonance of her words settled around them. Laura's expression softened. "I see that, Mom. But you're stepping into unknown territory. What if it doesn't go well? What if it does?" Betty challenged gently. "What if I connect with these kids? What if we start a movement right here in our neighborhood?" She leaned in, driven by a deeper need to inspire. "What if we grow a garden that transforms not just plants but lives?" After moments of silence, the corners of Laura's lips lifted, revealing a reluctant smile. "You really believe in this, don't you?" "I do," Betty affirmed, her resolve building. Even as doubt lurked in the corners of her mind, there was something exhilarating about the way forward, a feeling akin to planting seeds in freshly turned earth. Okay, let us take it step by step. We can work on a budget and reach out for donations. If you're going through with this, I'll help. Thank you, Betty breathed, relief flooding her. It means so much to have your support. Just then, a group of children bounced into view near the park, their laughter a buoyant note in the air. Betty's eyes lit up. See them? They are the reason. If I can show them how to nurture not just flowers but also their dreams, maybe they'll grow into something amazing. Laura nodded slowly, her worries easing bit by bit. Just be careful, all right? I don't want you to get hurt again. With that, both women were united in a shared vision of new beginnings. They began brainstorming how to gather supplies, reach out to neighbors, and establish a timeline. As they mapped out plans, each word felt like a building block, forming a solid foundation where possibility could take root. Ideas flowed. Cooking classes, garden projects, maybe even a seasonal farmer's market. Excitement enveloped them, but slowly the undercurrent of reality loomed back. Later that day, Betty took her first step into the park, heart fluttering with anticipation. She spotted the same teens from yesterday, their smiles wide as they shared stories and laughter. Betty approached them, feeling a mix of nervousness and excitement like when she first started planting seeds all those years ago. Hey everyone, she called out, summoning courage. I'd love to help you learn about gardening, and who knows what else we can discover together. The teens turned, eyes sparkling with delight, and Betty felt a rush of warmth bathe her, as if something truly beautiful was beginning to unfold. But as she shared her idea, a voice loomed at the edge of the park, a familiar face. Laura's worries echoed loud and clear in Betty's mind. Is it really going to be that simple? Tomorrow she'd find out just how deep her resolve ran, and if she truly possessed the strength to build the garden and a new life she dreamed of. Would the community embrace her vision? Or would the aspirations collapse under the weight of reality? As the sun dipped low, casting an orange glow across the park, Betty bounced on her heels, feeling both anticipation and anxiety dance in her chest. The teens gathered around her, their energy infectious. She could see their eagerness to learn, and it filled her with hope. Who here has tried gardening before? She asked, attempting to gauge their interest. A few hands shot up, tangled with laughter and playful nudges. One girl with a head full of curly hair piped up, I planted some flowers last spring but they kind of died? Betty chuckled, warmth spreading through her. That's okay. Gardening is about trial and error. Takes practice just like anything else. The excitement in her voice ignited something in the group. They leaned closer, hungry for knowledge, and Betty felt a weight lessening. Perhaps she could be the guide they needed. Let us get started. How would you like to plant some seeds today? She suggested, her own heart fluttering at the thought of dirt beneath her fingernails and the sweet scent of fresh earth around her. Yes, a chorus of voices echoed in unison. Betty thumbed through her mental list and pictured her tiny garden shed filled with tools. She had just enough supplies to get things moving. With a sense of purpose, she motioned for the group to follow her. Come on, let us do this. As they walked, laughter erupted, blending with the chirping of crickets. The teens followed happily, and Betty was struck by how simple moments could stir such joy. The sound pulled her even deeper into this moment, grounding her in her commitment to creating something worthwhile. Not just a garden but a space for hope. When they reached the shed, she opened the door with a flourish. Welcome to the magical world of gardening, she announced. Inside, cobwebs-covered corners and old tools rested in quiet anticipation, but Betty saw beyond that. She envisioned laughter and sharing, hands working together to nurture life from the ground. Betty handed out shovels and trowels, her pulse quickening. Let us start by planting some sunflowers. They're easy and they grow tall just like all of you. One boy with bright blue sneakers and a cheeky grin picked up a spade. Are we going to have a sunflower competition? Why not? Betty agreed, a spark igniting in her. Let us compete for the tallest sunflower. You'll be in charge of measuring them each week and we'll see who grows the biggest. Excitement buzzed through the group, and for the first time in a long while, Betty felt alive. With hands in the soil and laughter swirling around her, she felt the doubts from earlier begin to fade. Everything felt right, the sound of joy, the warmth of the sun, and the thrill of new beginnings. But just as they settled into a rhythm, a commotion disrupted the harmony. A group of older teens, a couple of them known from the neighborhood, approached. What are you doing here? This is our space. One of them shouted, arrogance dripping from their words. Betty's heart sank. She could see the nervousness wash over her new friends, the laughter quickly replaced by tension. The warmth of her earlier connection melted away as shadows crept back in. Maybe you should leave, another added, smirking while the other snickered, eyeing the tools in Betty's hand. Betty stood taller, feeling a mix of fear and protection for the kids beside her. This is a public park. Everyone is welcome here, she said, keeping her voice steady despite the tremor inside. Her stomach twisted, and she sensed the pivotal moment. Would she stand firm, or would she let the shadows pull her back into doubt? As the hostility loomed, could she find the strength not just to defend her space but also the dream she started to grow? The answer hung in the air, heavy with uncertainty as Betty squared her shoulders. The tension thickened, surrounding Betty like a storm cloud. She felt that familiar knot in her throat, a sense of panic clawing at the edges of her courage. The teens around her looked unsure, glancing between their would-be mentors and the older kids with a mix of fear and trepidation. Why don't you just go home? The ringleader jeered, stepping closer, his eyes narrowed with intimidation. Betty's heart raced. She wasn't just fighting for a little patch of earth. She was fighting for these kids' confidence, their joy, their desire to learn. This wasn't just about gardening anymore. It was a battle for acceptance, a place to belong. Steeling her resolve, Betty took a deep breath, the deep earthy scent overwhelming her senses, calming her mind just a touch. This is our community, she said firmly, letting the words roll off her tongue with as much conviction as she could muster. We all deserve a space to create and to grow. Isn't that right? The younger teens slowly nodded, some returning her gaze. A flicker of hope ignited in her chest. Maybe, just maybe, she could rally their spirits against the looming doubt. Hey, can't we all just share this space? One girl yelled, her voice surprising even herself. I mean, we all want to make it nice, right? For a split second, tension hung in the air. The older group looked surprised, hesitating momentarily, perhaps caught off guard by the unexpected courage of the younger ones. That's not how it works, the leader sneered, folding his arms defiantly. You have to pay your dues if you want to be here. Betty felt another wave of anger rush through her. She could see her friends shrinking, but she wouldn't let that happen. I've been right where all of you are. I've faced rejection and judgment, and I refuse to be pushed around because someone thinks they own this space. The older teens exchanged glances. Doubt danced among them, giving Betty a sliver of encouragement. Look, we're here to bring something good, she continued, her voice rising with assurance. We might be new at this, but we have a right to grow just like any plant that breaks through the soil. Yeah, what's wrong with having a few flowers? The boy with the blue sneakers added, daringly stepping forward. They're not taking up any space you want to claim. The harsh vibe began to waver. There was a flicker of uncertainty in the older group. Betty noticed it and pressed on, her heart beating like thunder in her ears. Life is about community, helping one another, supporting each other in our journeys. Wouldn't it be better if we all built this place up together? The leader's expression softened slightly, no longer rigid. You think you can just run a gardening club, huh? Like it's that easy? Betty's pulse quickened, determination flooding her veins. I believe it's possible. And I believe we can turn this park into a thriving space for everyone. You could even join us. Laughter bubbled from within the younger group. It felt electric, sparking a fire of unity. After a moment that felt like forever, the leader scoffed. Yeah, right. As if you lot could actually do that. But he hesitated this time, the edge of his bravado softening. Betty dared to hope. She knew that their journey wouldn't be simple. But if they could stand together, perhaps they could change the air around them. Maybe we could just plant over there out of the way, one of the older teens suggested, motioning dismissively. Betty sensed that this was a small victory in the making. They weren't just bowing down, they were ceding ground. That works. She smiled wide, relief washing over her. Let us show them just how beautiful we can make this space. As the older teens turned away, muttering to each other but without the swagger they had when they arrived, Betty felt the weight lift just a bit. The teens around her erupted into laughter again. Their spirits rekindled. They traded excited whispers and dreams of sunflowers, but beneath her smiling facade, a small voice whispered in Betty's mind, urging caution. This was just the beginning, and she couldn't shake the feeling that Challenges lay ahead, perhaps even greater than this. And as they began to dig into the earth once again, turning the soil beside each other, Betty couldn't help but wonder what would it take to truly form the community they all craved. Little did they know they were about to uncover a whole new world, rich with not only plants but also with life lessons that none of them saw coming. As Betty and her friends dug into the earth, the sunny day seemed to brighten around them. Each scoop of soil felt like a new beginning. They shared stories while they worked, laughter bubbling up as they envisioned the space they were creating. Betty saw the way their faces lit up at the thought of planting flowers brightening the dusty park. The older teens lingered nearby, still eyeing them with skepticism. But now it was softer. Instead of just mockery, there were faint glances of curiosity. The air wavered with potential. "Do you think we could plant something like sunflowers over here?" asked the girl in the plaid shirt, poking her shovel in the ground as if to claim a spot for their future blooms. Betty nodded enthusiastically. "Absolutely. They do look fantastic and they grow tall and strong, just like we're trying to do." The excitement was palpable. They gathered supplies, trading tasks, and filling buckets with seeds. Betty led them in a cheer for their first planting. 1, 2, 3 sunflowers. The simple chant echoed across the park, pulling smiles from everyone, including some of the older kids. Though they didn't join in, their faces were less hardened, softened by intrigue. But then a voice chimed in from the back. "So what? You plant some flowers and think it's all sunshine and rainbows?" Betty turned to see the ringleader. His brow furrowed as he approached. The others around him seemed to hold their breath, as if fearing what would come next. "What's your plan? You really think planting flowers will fix everything?" His eyes bore into Betty, as if searching for something to challenge. Taking a glance at her friends, Betty felt a surge of abounding hope, a fire ignited within her. "It's not just about the flowers. It's about bringing people together. Look at us. We're a team, a community. We can learn from each other." The boy in blue sneakers piped up, "And you too. We're here to share this space. What's wrong with joining us?" The leader shifted, his bravado retreating. "You care about this place? Is it really that important to you?" "For the first time it feels like home," Betty replied, her voice steadying with raw emotion. "It's a chance for us to feel accepted, to grow together." Silence enveloped them for a moment, the weight of her words floating into the air. Betty watched as the boys exchanged murmurs, flickering glances of consideration, maybe even respect. "I don't know," he said finally, uncertainty creeping in. "You think you can keep this up? Work like this forever?" Betty took a step forward, ready to bridge the divide. "What if we created a space to help each other? You can bring your ideas here too. Let's fill this park with creativity. Everyone has something to contribute." Suddenly the ringleader smirked. "You really think that'll work? That we'll all get along?" "I do." Betty's eyes brightened with a surge of spirit. "Because when we reach out, we're not just planting seeds, we're planting trust. We all want to belong somewhere, don't we?" The group fell quiet again. It was a moment hanging in the air, thick with possibility. Betty hoped they could feel the shifting currents, the heat of change filling the space between them. Then from behind, one of the older girls uncharacteristically shuffled closer, breaking the tension. She hesitated for a moment before introducing her own dreams. "What about fruit trees? We can grow something productive too. Maybe a garden where everyone can come together and pick fresh fruits?" A ripple of quiet agreement sparked. Betty's heart soared. They could elevate their idea into something magnificent. But just as they began to rally around the new notion, a rustling from the edge of the park drew her attention. Betty turned and her breath hitched. A small scraggly dog stood watching them, curious yet cautious. "Hey there, little buddy," Betty called out, kneeling down to appear less intimidating. But as the dog cautiously stepped forward, she felt a strange sense of foreboding. What if there was more to this day than what she had anticipated? Why did it feel like this was just the gateway to something much bigger? The dog wagged its tail, and when it took another tentative step, Betty couldn't shake the feeling that their next adventure was just beginning. The little dog approached slowly, its eyes darting from face to face, catching the flicker of hope in their smiles. Betty felt her heart flutter as it took a few more cautious steps, its scruffy fur glinting in the sunlight. They were all curious about this unexpected visitor. "Maybe he needs a home too," Betty murmured, kneeling lower and extending her hand, palm up, just a few inches from the ground. Her friends watched with bated breath as the dog sniffed her fingers, his nose twitching. In that moment something shifted inside Betty. The connection felt electric, as if they both shared an unspoken understanding of resilience. Then, cautiously, the dog leaned in and gently licked the side of her hand. Chuckles erupted from Betty's friends, breaking the tension. "Looks like you made a new friend," Jeremy exclaimed, stepping forward to get a better look. "He is adorable," cheered the girl in the plaid shirt, squatting down to reach out as well. The dog, emboldened by the warmth of their laughter, approached her with wild wagging and a newfound sense of safety. Betty's heart filled with joy, but she couldn't ignore that sense of something deeper. "Let us call him Sunshine," she proclaimed, grinning widely. "He fits right in with our new garden." The name sparked a ripple of laughs and excitement among the group. They started tossing around ideas about how to care for him, just like the plants they intended to nurture in the park. It became clear that Sunshine was more than just a dog. He represented everything they wanted their project to be: a symbol of new beginnings, hope and connection. As plans took shape, the park began to come alive. Grass was cleared, seeds were sown, and alongside the sunflowers soon grew plans for vegetable patches and laughter shared over afternoon snacks. With each task, their sense of community deepened. The older teens who had once watched them with skepticism began getting involved, encouraged by their persistence and zest for change. But while they found common ground, whispers trailed through the air, buoyed by the rumor mill. "Do you think the others will join?" one of the older girls asked, a hint of doubt creeping in. Betty felt a pang of concern. Could they keep up this momentum? What if the initial spark faded? Just then there was a sudden shout from the group. When all eyes snapped toward the sound, Betty spotted a small gang of kids on bikes racing toward the park, full of energy and mischief. They skidded to a halt, their curious gazes fixed on the muddy plot of earth and the scattered tools surrounding it. "What's going on here?" called out one of them, right as Sunshine bounded forward, barking happily as if to welcome his new companions. Betty's stomach churned with anxiety. Would they understand? Would they ruin what they had started? Just as the thought settled in her mind, she felt a surge of determination boil up inside her. "Hey, want to help us create something awesome?" she shouted, her voice steady as she approached the newcomers. "We're building a community garden, and you can be a part of it." Some of her friends exchanged hopeful glances, excitement bubbling again. Would this be the moment that expanded their burgeoning group even further? But in the midst of her hope, Betty felt the familiar tightness of uncertainty clawing at her, whispering, "What if they don't care?" Ignoring the unease in her chest, she pressed on. "There's room for everyone here." As she stood there, ready to face whatever came next, the group of kids exchanged glances. The tension hung in the air, heavy and charged. Would they join them, or would they turn their backs, leaving the dream of a revived park hanging by a thread? With sudden energy, the lead kid smiled and shouted back, "We're in. Let us get this going." The thrill of possibility surged through Betty. What if their little garden wasn't just a change in the park, but a starting point for something even bigger? And just like that, an adventure began. The stakes grew higher, and the feeling of something monumental lingered just beyond the horizon, ready to be unveiled. What else was waiting in the shadows of the park? And how deeply would it challenge everything they believed about community and belonging? As the group of kids from the neighborhood poured into the park, the atmosphere flipped from unease to pure excitement. Laughter and chatter filled the air as they grabbed shovels and gloves, ready to dive into the work. Betty watched open-mouthed, feeling a rush of gratitude and disbelief. This was what they wanted: a community coming together, united under Sunshine's playful spirit and a shared vision. "Let us clear that corner first," Jeremy called out, pointing to a thorny patch that had been neglected for too long. The kids who had skidded in on bikes flanked him, nodding eagerly. Betty's heart soared at the sight. Most of those kids had always seemed like a world away, but now they were digging in, tossing dirt and weeds aside as if they were old friends. As they worked, the sun climbed higher in the sky. The warmth on Betty's back felt like a gentle reminder that change was happening. Sunshine darted from one group to another, tail wagging furiously, blissfully oblivious to any past troubles. Betty couldn't help but smile every time he dashed past, bringing laughter and a sense of ease, but soon the unease crept back in. Betty caught snippets of conversations among the kids, their plans to expand into a bigger garden, dreams of a picnic area, and even a small playground. What were they thinking? This was a dream she had cherished so deeply, a vision she had clung to in silence. Could she let others take it and make it theirs? Thoughts spiraled as she noticed some of her own friends hesitating, unsure of how to voice their opinions. "Do you think it's okay if we add a slide?" one of the new kids asked, eyes wide with enthusiasm. "I think that'll make it way more fun." He was grinning ear to ear, radiating pure joy. "We could make it a community decision," suggested a girl with pigtails, her voice brimming with optimism as she brandished a trowel like a sword. Betty's heart raced. The prospect of losing control made her stomach twist. But she quickly remembered the spark they had ignited, the reason they all gathered here. "Why not have a group meeting later?" she suggested, trying to sound confident. "We can all share ideas for what we want the garden to be." With a chorus of agreements, the conversation shifted, allowing everyone a chance to contribute. Feeling a surge of pride, Betty caught eyes with Jeremy, and he grinned back. This was it. This is the kind of energy the park needed. As the sun began to dip low, painting the sky in brilliant hues, Betty stepped back for a moment, catching her breath. She looked around, her friends laughing, the newcomers busily making plans, sunshine rolling in the grass. It felt alive, vibrant, and full of promise. But then, out of nowhere, a loud voice broke through the laughter. "What's going on here?" A tall figure loomed near the park's entrance, Mr. Thompson, the notoriously grumpy property owner. The excitement stilled. Fear flickered across people's faces. Betty's heart sank as she faced a new wave of uncertainty. Would he understand what they were trying to create? Would he push them away, snuffing out the joy before it could bloom? As he stepped closer, eyes narrowed, Betty felt a lump in her throat. What if this was a turning point, one that could either solidify their community or shatter it once more? With a trembling breath, she squared her shoulders. "We're reclaiming this park," she declared, her voice steady as she took a step forward. And so, the moment hung in the balance, waiting for his response. Was this dream strong enough to endure? Would they rise to the occasion together? Or would the weight of fear send them scattering? The next few seconds felt like an eternity, and Betty realized in that moment, everything depended on what happened next. Mr. Thompson paused, his brow furrowing as he studied the group. The sun cast long shadows across the park, and for a moment, the atmosphere vibrated with uncertainty. The kids shifted uneasily, whispering to one another. Betty felt their eyes on her, waiting for something, an affirmation or a dismissal. A decision. "Reclaiming the park, huh?" Mr. Thompson finally muttered, his voice slicing through the tension like a knife. "You kids think you can just come in here and change things?" His tone was skeptical, the edges sharp, yet there was an odd glimmer in his eyes. Betty's heart raced. She could almost feel the weight of his skepticism pressing down on her shoulders. "Yes," she blurted out, her voice rising above the murmurs, buoyed by the courage swelling inside her. "We want to make this place better, not just for us but for everyone. Sunshine used to play here. We want to bring it back to life." Her words seemed to hang in the air, daring him to respond. She could see the other kids nodding in solidarity, their excitement bubbling back to the surface despite the heaviness of the moment. Mr. Thompson looked around, taking in the dirt and the effort scattered across the park. Laughter, joy, hot sun, and the spirit of togetherness that contrasted against the dreary memories of neglect and isolation. "Listen," he began, hesitating, a hint of something softer flickering across his face. "It's not just about what this park needs, it's about who decides its fate." Around them, the chirping of birds became the only sound as everyone leaned in. Maybe he was considering it. What if he continued slowly? "You all created a plan. Show me you really care and I might be willing to help." Betty blinked in surprise, her heart echoing in her chest. Hope ignited. This was not what she expected. Was he really willing to meet them halfway? Without thinking, she stepped forward again, urgency in her voice. "We'll have ideas. We can make a proposal. We want everyone's voice to count." The kids erupted into chatter, excitement bubbling over. They had momentum and it was intoxicating. Mr. Thompson raised a hand for silence, a serious expression back on his face. "But remember, I'll have final say. You'll need to follow the rules. Their cheers halted, replaced by apprehensive looks. But before Betty could let doubt creep in, Jeremy chimed in. "We can do that. We can set up our first community meeting next week. We'll invite everyone, even you." Mr. Thompson arched an eyebrow, a flicker of amusement playing on his lips. "I'll consider it. Just remember, a plan is only as good as the effort behind it." As he turned to leave, a unique calm settled over the park, like the sun finding a space through dark clouds. Betty felt a grin forming, one that couldn't be stopped. For the first time, she believed something magical could happen here. The kids rallied, bouncing ideas off each other, dreaming of what the park could become. They were bursting with potential. Every smile, every suggestion felt electric, igniting hope and determination as they began to tidy up for the day. Betty felt her spirit lift higher. There was so much work ahead, and she couldn't do it all alone. "Let us work together. We can do this," she shouted, her voice brimming with conviction. But even behind her rush of excitement, she couldn't help but wonder. Was she ready to share this dream with everyone? Could they truly collaborate? Or would old rivalries resurface? And deep within, there was another question that gnawed at her. What lay hidden beneath the surface of Mr. Thompson's brusque exterior? Was there more than just stubbornness there? She had a feeling that the next meeting would reveal so much more than just plans for a park. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a warm glow across their makeshift gathering, Betty couldn't shake the sense that they stood on the brink of something monumental. What would they discover together? Days turned into weeks as Betty and her young crew transformed the park into a vibrant community hub. Each Saturday, as the sun rose, so did the energy and enthusiasm of her little garden committee. They dug, planted, painted, and laughed together. The murmurs of doubt faded, replaced by the sounds of joy and friendship. Betty led workshops that attracted curious minds from every corner of the neighborhood. Together they nurtured sunflower seeds, instilling hope and growth, not just in plants but in each other. Word spread, and soon the older kids who had once scoffed now joined in, bringing their ideas and dreams to life alongside the younger ones. The park transformed, becoming more than just a patch of land. It was a sanctuary of laughter, play, and love. But in the background, Mr. Thompson's approval still loomed, a mystery wrapped in his stern demeanor. Betty gathered everyone one afternoon under the shade of the oak tree. She had just received an email invitation for their first community meeting to present their revitalization plan to Mr. Thompson. Excitement buzzed through the group. They had poured their hearts into this garden, and now they had a chance to show it off. "Everyone, this is our moment. We will show Mr. Thompson how much we care," Betty announced, her voice infused with the fire of determination. The crowd cheered, and they all dove into preparations, painting colorful signs, creating banners, and even making a presentation full of bright images and heartfelt stories. As the day approached, Betty felt the familiar knot of anxiety tightening in her stomach. What if they didn't like it? What if Mr. Thompson dismissed their hard work? Standing outside her house that morning, she looked up at the skies, which were bright and clear. Just like her newfound journey, today felt full of potential. When they arrived at the park, the air thrummed with excitement. Neighbors lined the walkways, their hearts alight with curiosity. "Over here," shouted Jeremy, waving everyone over to their makeshift stage, a wooden platform decorated with flowers and drawings by the kids. Mr. Thompson arrived, his shadow falling over the vibrant colors of the display. Betty's breath caught in her throat. They had worked so hard for this moment. She stood before the crowd and met his eyes, reminding herself of how far they'd come. "Welcome, everyone. Today we're here to show you what our community garden truly means," she started, her voice steady despite the tremor inside her. She glanced at the smiling faces of the kids filled with hope and confidence. "We've turned this forgotten space into something beautiful together." As Betty spoke, she shared stories that echoed the laughter they had inspired, how they had fed not just soil but hearts. The audience leaned in, engaged by the passion and authenticity in her voice. Even Mr. Thompson's expression softened, though his arms remained crossed. It felt as if they were awakening something deep within him. "It's about community, collaboration, and nurturing our dreams and our garden." Betty gestured to Jeremy and the younger kids, who stood proudly beside her. "We've learned not just to plant flowers, but also kindness, respect, and acceptance." When Betty finished, the crowd erupted in applause, a wave of warmth lifting her spirit. Mr. Thompson cleared his throat, holding everyone's attention once more. You've done a commendable job, much more than I expected. He paused, glancing around at the lively park. But silence settled in again, anticipation heavy in the air. I want to see how you all intend to keep this up, he continued. If I'm to allow any major changes around here, I'll need a plan, a sustainable vision. A nervous murmur rippled through the audience. Betty felt anxiety creep back in, but she swallowed hard and stepped forward. Mr. Thompson, we're prepared to share that. We have ideas, calendars, and a real commitment to nurture this community together. Together we can keep our park full of life, every season. To her great relief, the audience regained cheerfulness, clapping and encouraging her words. She caught the glimmer of interest in Mr. Thompson's eyes, a flicker of recognition, perhaps even respect. They had started turning the tide. He nodded slowly. Then I'm willing to work with you under one condition. You need to manage the park together. Adults and kids collaboratively. Tears of relief brimmed in Betty's eyes. We can do that. We'll hold meetings, set up a committee, everyone will have a say. At last she breathed in deeply, allowing the weight of doubt to fall away. This was transformation. As the sun set on that day, painting the sky in dazzling colors of orange and pink, Betty looked around at her friends, a new family forged from resilience, bravery, and love. This is our time, she whispered, a smile wide across her face. But the magic hadn't ended. It was just the beginning of a flourishing community, blooming brightly like the sunflowers they had planted, destined to inspire hope and connection for everyone around. Remember, hold on to your dreams and cultivate them. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that could change your life. Leave a like now because your support feeds the algorithm. Comment your thoughts and feelings about this incredible transformation. And don't wait. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this journey of hope and renewal. You need to be part of this amazing community.